I'm Bill Patton with 720 Degree Coaching, and I have the distinct pleasure to have on the show today Adam Sher of Accutennis. And it's going to be interesting to talk about an important product in the industry that can bring a lot of value to clubs and players and coaches. So, Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm well, Bill. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I appreciate you coming on. So let's get to know you a little bit, and then we'll get a little bit more into Accutennis and what is it, and the value proposition and whatnot. So tell us a little bit about your background as a player. How did you get into playing the game, and how did you transition into this business?
Sure. So I came to tennis a little later, I think, than most. I played a little bit during the indoor season as a junior, and then in high school got lucky and happened to try out for a team that had some really good players, and so I was in our team happened to perform well. So in high school, I was exposed to this different level of competition, but also this team environment, which was a lot of fun. And previously, I was a cross-country runner, which I still did and do, and the team environment and that is a little bit different. So being on this team in tennis sort of opened my eyes in terms of sort of competitive athletics, and I just really liked participating in it. And so I started to play more and got lucky. And in the college I also went to and had the opportunity to try out as a walk-on for my team at Brandeis University, and got a little bit lucky being able to try out for that team and make the team again, and really fell in love with the sport there, and then spent a big part of 2 summers living with the coach in Florida and training with him. And then after college, actually continued to play, found some really good players in leagues around the Philadelphia area where I moved, and actually continued to practice and take lessons. And actually I think I would beat college Adam pretty badly. So it's just a sport I've continued to grow with and enjoy more and more each year.
Well, I think, one of my missions in life is to build up high school tennis. And so this is a great look into what can happen with a high school tennis player. I mean, maybe you were impressive when you first came out, maybe you weren't, but you came and you improved and you became a college tennis player, maybe as a surprise or maybe not. But now you're really doing something in the industry, and maybe you might not have done that if you hadn't played high school tennis first. But anyway, so how did it come about that you started developing this Accutennis product?
So I have 2 partners who are hardware engineers and computer vision experts, Dave Klein and Andy Hatzstaff. And so about a little more than 2 years ago, or around 2 years ago, I was running a different technology company called ClubOS that made sales and marketing automation software in the health and fitness space. So I was in the gym industry and had a lot of customers who were clubs with major tennis components to them. And towards the end of that, I met Dave and Andy through a Philadelphia startup group, and they were toying around with this prototype at the club they live near for this computer vision system that called lines and kept score and gave you real-time feedback. So I had to check it out, and they were looking for someone to help take what was an early idea and a prototype and turn it into a business. And when I spent some time with them, I just fell in love with what they were doing and really connected with Dave and Andy, and just knew that I had to find a way to do this with my career, and felt like everything I had done up until this point sort of led me to this in terms of the needing to know different aspects of building businesses, raising capital, servicing customers, et cetera, that would allow us to bring this to finish developing this, bring it to market, and be successful.
Okay, and so Accutennis is in the play site space, kind of like, you know, and what are some of the other competitors that people might know that do a similar sort of thing?
If for people who watch tennis on television, Hawkeye is the system of sort of leading the way in terms of features and accuracy and prominence. So,
Okay.
first Hawkeye, and it's a very high-end, expensive system. So it's sort of exists by itself in the professional field.
Okay.
Then, for the rest of us, yep, there's really just the other company and us, so there's not a lot to do. And
Well, I already said their names, so yeah, but I understand that you're not going to. But now it's interesting. So now it's Hawkeye that develops these is it Hawkeye that develops these graphics where like they'll show the the average trajectory of shots? So like for instance, they'll show a graphic that shows, you know, the arc of the ball about, you know, 5 feet off the ground, and then gives you data on the spin and whatnot. Is that a Hawkeye thing?
I I don't know where the delineation between what Infosys does on the like post production side and sort of TV entertainment, and where Infosys begins and Hawkeye ends. So
Okay,
I
got
don't know
it.
the difference, but the two of those companies in conjunction are, and I guess IBM is the other one, are taking the camera data that Hawkeye creates and then presenting these for public consumption pieces of information.
Okay, so let's get right into what does Accutennis do, and you know, let's try to come up with some examples of certain places where people find value, where
Yeah,
there's there's the evaluative function. So what in a nutshell, give us what Accutennis does, and then maybe break down some of those aspects that are going to be really helpful.
yeah. The quickest, yeah, the one sentence is that Accutennis is a camera system that you install on a court, and it watches everything that goes on and gives you real-time feedback on everything you do. So to
Okay.
break that down, what we do is we install 22 cameras around the court, two speakers, one behind each baseline, and a two-sided LED display that's 2 feet wide by 6 inches high above one of the net posts. And so for most people, players and coaches, they interact with the system through the LED display and the speakers, in an on-court tablet or your phone, which is how you control the system. So it's primarily a way to get live feedback while you're on the court. So if you are in a lesson and you're working on your consistency, for example, and you want to know, and the goal is to hit 50 in a row, you you push the drill that is your consistency drill, and you put in the goal either on the spot or ahead of time, and then you start playing, and then it updates as you hit. So I hit it to you and you hit it back, and that's two, and you keep going, and so on and so forth, and you can see your progress. And also there's an audio component where you can get marker updates, or if you make an error and you have to restart, it tells you sort of how close you got to the goal.
Okay.
And
And do you have some images that you can share with us about what this looks like, what the output looks like? So it presents on the screen, and you can get some data on your screen. And can you say how big that was, the dimensions of the tablet again?
well, so the two-sided LED
Okay.
is yeah, it's about 2 feet long by 6 inches high. So it's
Okay.
not that big, but it's large enough that you can display, points or match scores or someone's name or the status of a shot, be it a fault on a serve or in or out during a match. So just the a big enough display so you can see it from the baseline clearly, but it's not so big that it is distracting to the players while they play, and it doesn't obstruct play while you're playing.
All
And
right. Oh, and so it essentially sends, it gives a message, like a written message in LED.
yeah,
Okay, got it. So it's not a tablet screen that will give graphic display. It's going to give you a message like an Amber Alert on the freeway.
um, yeah, not quite as dire in what depending
Yeah, sorry
on
about that comparison.
but
There will
yes,
be yeah, there will be no Amber Alerts that come across on Accutennis, so you need not be worried about that.
no, we're not integrated with any police systems yet.
Okay, yet that's a good qualifier.
No, there's a second component to the on-court feedback, and that is through the tablet that you use and we provide to control the system. So
Okay.
I can bring this up. So let me just bring up this other site. So can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so when you go onto the court, there's a tablet that's 8 or 10 inches that you pick up. It's in a big plastic or a big foam case so it protects it, but it's also easy to hold, and it also folds so pros can put it over their basket, and it makes it easy to carry around.
Okay.
So you pick up the tablet and you put in your phone number and you sign in, and it knows if you're a coach or a player,
Okay.
and then you can select the type of lesson you're doing. So for example, private lesson. And then the clients of that coach are pre-populated in the system from the club's member management system. And then you select who the player is, and you're in the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
You can there's a favorites list. So based on what's appropriate for you to do with me as your student at my level, and where we are in the number of sessions, and then you just start the lesson. So this works just as quickly as I just showed you. The set of training drills to do are two types of things. One, we sit down with the coach and the tennis director before during the installation of the system, and we say, what we go through everything they do in their lessons, across their different types of players, for skill levels and age groups, and
Mm-hmm.
we Accutennis programs that into their club. So when they go into their lessons, whether it's a private or semi-private or group, they're already in there. In addition to that, we have our own person in-house who's a certified PTR and USPTA coach that's developed curriculum, and we also offer that for clubs. So if you have a formal training system or are willing to sort of put down on paper how it is that the club operates and what their teaching platform is, that's great.
Okay, give me a for instance on that because right now it's in the ether. So like, give me a specific sort of individualized thing that somebody does during a lesson that you build into the system.
Okay, yeah. So here's a drill. This is pretty common. You are working on your serve and you're trying to hit more serves in. So on the tablet, we selected the drill, And now this is an example of how the tablet updates as you start hitting serves. The name of the drill is displayed here. And because the coach usually provided us with the drills they will usually recognize this, but just in case, there's a quick reference to what the drill does and what type of feedback you should expect to receive from the LED display on the net post.
Okay, and so can you back up to that last slide for a second? So you kind of get this alternating data of the speed of the serve and then the percentages in each box. So does it switch back and forth between them? Is it displayed for a few seconds? How are we going to see these two different things?
So typically, it'll first show you the percent you hit in the case of this drill, in each side of the court. And then as you serve, it will call it in or out. So if it's out, it'll say fault, and the sound will narrate fault. And if it's in, it will display the speed of the serve you hit in. And then that'll for about a second, or 1 or 2 seconds. And then it will go back to the percent, which is the real goal of this drill, and update.
Okay. So the default position is the percentages, and then for a moment, then you get the miles per hour. That's interesting. So, the thing that I like about this is that when people take statistics of first serve percentage, they don't often split it out between deuce and ad. And, I was actually pretty cutting edge because I was doing Accutennis in 1989. And it had its own dedicated laptop. So it was very interesting. So different keystrokes for certain things happening on the court. And it was really awesome to go up to a college player and say, hey, you're getting ahead in the game, but your first serve percentage is so poor in the ad court that you're not finishing. So, just get your first serve percentage up in the ad court, and you're going to have a lot more success getting out of your serve game.
Yeah, and I can in a little bit I can show you where we make that type of information, whether it's in a match or that's been recorded on the system, or a practice session available. So again, this type of drill is customizable by the coach. So everyone has similar ways of addressing learning how to hit a serve well. We also add the top variations of that drill to be quickly accessible, so you don't have to interrupt play to try to switch. So say in this lesson, we've warmed up our serve, and now we're moving on to the next part, which is working on a specific strategy. So again, you're on the deuce side, this is hitting it up the tee, and on the ad side, it's moving it out wide.
Yes. Okay, now maybe this is possible to do quickly, maybe not, or maybe you already have something built in. Do you have something for return of serve?
Yeah, we do. I don't have it in this instructor's drills, but in the same way, you can segment the court and create goals for the returner of areas they have to hit the court.
Okay, and so those are customizable to almost any dimensions you want?
Yeah, so in a little bit I can show you how we build. Actually, I can show you right now. So when we design drills, I'll just refresh this page. This is what some of the magic that happens on the back end. So for a coach, they just see what's on the tablet, that there's a list of drills with names and descriptions, success criteria, and a description. But it gets programmed into the system basically this way. So we have a a segmentation of the court, and then you have to add in, where the player is, and where they need to move to. So if you're returning the serve and you're trying to be aggressive, so the player may start there, or even behind the baseline. You want them to move up to the baseline and then attack the ball and hit it cross court over here to the server. And you can expand this box of what's acceptable for the ball to go.
Yeah.
In this case, the court is broken out into 3 foot by 3 foot boxes beyond the service line, and 4.5 foot by 3 foot boxes between the service line and the net.
Wow,
So,
that's great. That is really great. This reminds me of a quick story. I had this kid, Aaron, who was a lot like you. He wasn't super impressive as a sophomore, but he got a lot better. So as a junior, I had him hitting his approach shot into like 9 of those boxes.
yeah.
And then as he was a senior and he was getting ready, actually he had just graduated and he's getting ready to play college tennis. So I tried to get him to hit into only the 4 boxes in the corner with his approach, because he was going to have to hit better approach shots in college if he was going to come to the net.
Right.
So having the variability of space and increasing the challenge of the drill is that really looks like fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. And one thing I want to sort of reiterate about this is that we handle this during setup or during the course of a club having Accutennis. So we're trying to make it really fast and easy for the coach to use this. So I hope it was obvious that when I started this, the login to get to the drill was very quick and only took a few 4 taps to get from picking up the tablet to actually doing a drill. And that we've taken the burden away from the clubs of programming these things into the system, because most coaches are rightly sensitive to sort of unpaid admin time. And whether it's
Right.
getting texts from parents about questions they have, or videos they want them to review for free for their kids, etc. Or in the case of this, how do you administer the system? And one point of failure is asking people to do sort of this extra unpaid work. So to create a set of curriculum or drills, can be a time-consuming process, because you got to think about, what is it that you're, as my coach, going to do with me over the next 12 weeks to get better? And if you just went on the court, you sort of got this system down in your head that you roughly adhere to, and to translate that into this is no quick feat. So we do that for you, so that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if I was going to give a suggestion, it would be that if you and your club are running this, that you really ought to hike up your private lesson rates that include this service by minimum 15%. There's an interesting little piece of data out there that when you increase your rates by 15%, you lose 3% of your clientele. And then there's this, you've heard the 80-20 rule, right? Well, there's also the 97-3 rule.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that 3% of your clientele will create 97% of your problems. So I noticed this, that I had far fewer headaches as a private lesson giver after raising my rates.
Well, you're certainly more hawkish on the rate raise than what we advise. So I'm happy to go with your proposal. That's way better.
I have to say, I have to admit, it frightened me. I went up. I did that. I heard that stat. I raised my rates, and I was really surprised by people who practically yawned when I told them my rates were going up.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll pay it." I mean, because so I think sometimes we underestimate our value as coaches, and when you do something like this that adds tremendous value, then it's another way of then you don't feel bad about doing so-called free admin work.
Right.
It's the service that justifies the higher rate. So, then yeah, if you're raising your rate by that much, don't go back to the club and say, "Hey, I'm not getting paid for X." Yeah, yes, you are. So,
Right. Well, it's two things, right? It's one, if the club raises the rate, great for the club. But what's in it? And I've had coaches tell this for me. What's in it for the coaches? Because
right.
clubs, the coaches are W-2s, and some clubs the coaches are 1099. So yeah. So it's two people, sort of two groups of people that are potentially benefited, but not
Well,
automatically.
okay, so let's speak to that too. So if you're a club and you're instituting this and it's going to create, and you then want to make your tennis pros happy, because a club ought to be in a service industry, ought to be serving its staff well, and by extension then your staff will then serve your people incredibly well. So so if you adopt that attitude of, okay, we're going to do Accutennis as a way to boost service to everyone,
Yep.
then by all means then look for an opportunity to take advantage of the added value and raise rates and help tennis pros make a living wage. Because i I would be it'd be really interesting to see what the percentage of tennis pros is who can afford to live in the area where they coach,
Okay.
and I bet it's not large. So, it's tennis coaches are probably paid actually less than school teachers in most places.
Oof, that's rough.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
it's a great discussion because this is not cheap, right? And a lot of people, it's no matter how you cut it, it's an expense, but it can add a lot of value. But then I think also the club has to see that there's adding value for everyone.
yeah. Well,
So
yeah, we've designed the system to be affordable for every club. So I'm hoping they don't view it as not. I hope they do view it as affordable. One of the
yeah, well, there's affordable and then there's cheap.
right,
So now see, now I'm going to take my frugal independent tennis pro hat on, who can't afford anything. So I'm going to
right,
put this on. I'm going to put on my cheap tennis pro independent pro hat, and so who looks at things only through the filter of, is it cheap or is it not cheap?
right.
So I think it's good to know if you're an independent pro out there and you don't have an indoor court, then this is not for you. This is really targeted at indoor clubs for now, and then soon you're going to be developing more, right? So tell us about what's coming for the future, or or actually, I'm interrupting your presentation. If you want to go through
No, we
the
can jump
rest of
around.
the present, yeah,
Okay, so really quick, finish this. We can finish up that train of thought. Yes. So currently, it's for clubs and or gyms with tennis courts, um, academies and universities with indoor courts, and by we hope and expect that by the end of next year we'll have adapted the system to be used in any environment, so outdoors as well.
and do you have kind of like a ballpark timeline on that?
Yeah, by the end of next year, 2020.
Okay, by the end of 2020. Okay. All right. So, and to be fair to you, I understand that you're you're trying to make it workable for people. It's but by the same token, there are going to be people who naturally balk at any price. So there's a little sales work that goes on here. So I think so. Let's dig a little deeper into the value that's brought by this product. So where are all the different things that people can, enhance the overall experience, learn to play better, maybe have matches that are more fair.
Hmm.
I mean, because you can use this to call lines. Is that true?
Yeah, well, let me start with the sort of the sort of the bottom line value is that this should be a profit center for a club.
Yeah.
And we've built it and created the user interface and priced it that way. So we expect that a club who buys one system and pays an installation fee, their payback would be in 3 months or less. And then during our pre-sale, it would be a zero installation fee, and so they should be profitable in month one. So we based on 30% utilization of the system during available court hours. So I think so that's sort of the bottom line of how we viewed it. So to your point of a club or a set of coaches who might be hesitant about spending money, we've really put a lot of effort on the manufacturing cost control side, as well as understanding the business model and how tennis clubs make money, to situate ourselves so that this can really be a value add to the clubs financially, because it's hard to run a club, and many run on single digit profit margins. So it's to look at something to bring in new to the club. It's typically just an expense, along the lines of just buying new balls or adding, or resurfacing a court or something. So we had to try position this as something that would benefit the club and allow their business to grow.
Yeah, and that's great. And one thing I try to position myself in as an interviewer is somebody who just doesn't present sort of an infomercial.
Right.
And I try to make sure that we put the interviewee in a tough spot where they get to sell their way out of a tough corner. So no, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your willingness to explain that. I think it's an important thing. Definitely, there is a place for this somewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
probably many clubs can really benefit from this.
Yeah. So the second, so the longer-winded part of what you were asking about, what is it in the system that's benefiting players and coaches, tennis instructors, and owners? So as we were going through earlier, providing live feedback for your lessons, which can also be done without a coach. So if you and I are friends and we're play pretty regularly and want to get better, or at least have some fun and see how fast we can hit it, we can use the system just outside of a coaching environment and go through the same drills that the clubs have access to, or the same games that the clubs have access to. And so so that's one. And I really keep emphasizing this live feedback because, similar to personal training, when you're on the court or with your trainer or with your coach, you are paying attention and you're focused and you're trying your hardest to listen and incorporate what they're saying into your workout or your hit so you can get better. And as much as they then say, okay, you need to change your diet and then stretch and do all this other stuff, and check out this video of someone doing what I'm trying to get you to do, most people don't do that because it's homework and it's off the court or it's outside of the gym, and we all have other things we're doing with our lives. And so I think typically an unrealistic expectation to say when you're not on the court, that's really when you get the most value out of the system. It really has to be, what can we do when you're in your lesson or in your group clinic, or you and I are just hitting on our own, that
Exactly.
can be valuable or
Now,
providing.
let me interject for a second. So, are you familiar with the Hawthorne Effect, which is essentially that people do better when observed?
Hmm,
So, when people hire a personal trainer, they usually get 30 to 40% better results
hmm,
because someone's watching.
yeah,
And so as coaches, we can learn a lot from that. It's just the fact that we're there watching, people are going to perform better. But now, you know, maybe, and if we can let Accutennis do a little bit of the watching,
yeah.
then people can gain even more value and out above and beyond a private lesson, right?
That's absolutely true. So if I'm taking a weekly lesson from you, and you're saying, Adam, you need to, we're working on hitting the ball cross court deeper on my forehand and my backhand, and you say, okay, Adam, I know you're going to hit with your buddies a couple of times before we do our next lesson, and I want you to work on that. Well, what typically happens is I will hit with my buddies and sometimes do that. And I may not, because, we do ground stroke games and I'm competitive, or I'm just, not, I don't feel great. I don't think it's going to be a great hit. So I just want to be on the court, put in my time and get off the court. There's a ton of things like that.
Right.
But if you went on an Accutennis court, I would know that you're expecting a notification that I completed the drill. And so there's accountability built in that, one, if I care about what you said and do want to put in the effort to get better, it's the drills that we did in the lesson are available for me just as easily to access when I hit with my friend, and then it's logged and tracked. So then next time you already know how I did. Did I work on it? Did I not work on it? Was
Right.
I and how effectively I did it when you weren't watching me. So it certainly is a way to extend the coach's reach outside of the lesson.
Well,
And
and there's another thing that's eliminated too. It's the limited ability of players to perceive whether they've actually done something,
right,
and the outright dishonesty of people to sort of shine things on, right? So, and it might even be unintentional, right? But now here's the funny thing. Okay, I'll put cones down and give a target area, and just because of the perspective, a player believes that a ball that has landed fully a foot short has gone into the target area, and
yeah,
it has not. And I
it is.
will put a ball there, and I'll say, no, it landed here. Now, do you see that? And it takes them a time to adjust their perception. So then, there's no lying to the Accutennis. Either you hit, right, your X number of shots into that space, or you didn't. Or with my juniors, I try to convince them with their practice partners, hey, see if you can get them to hit 10 full minutes to your backhand that you're working on, and then be sure to ask them what shot they want you to hit to for 10 full minutes. And they always mentally acquiesce to that idea, but I have no idea if it ever really happens.
Right. Yeah, I like to give people a little more credit, but to your point of, when you put the cone down and you put the ball down, and people have their eyes from 60, 70 feet away, it's just too hard to see. So even, and I think that's more the case than when I go out and just hit with my friend and I'm trying to work on something, that my perspective just isn't trained well enough as a club player to really know how effective I'm being. And so to have this other system, Accutennis, or the cone on the court, that's the source of truth, and it says no, it's actually, you need to adjust yourself a little bit, is really powerful, and it helps you be more efficient with your time on the court, and people actually can get better a lot more quickly.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so we need to wrap this up fairly quickly. So, is there anything else that people really need to know before we wrap up?
Yeah, I do want to show you. So in order to make this live feedback possible, we have to track and record everything that's going on.
Yeah,
So
don't go to the dead mouse thing.
it
Don't hit your
actually
dead
doesn't.
mouse tab. I saw that. That's
Yeah, I
good.
got it.
In fact, I was scanning your tabs for anything embarrassing, and there isn't anything. So good for you.
I'm mostly professional half the time.
Okay, got it.
Half the time, I'm like 80% of the way.
No, I get you. It's a Yogi Berra thing. Yeah, 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 yeah. Here we go.
So to then everything's recorded, and you can log in to your account as a player anytime you want from your phone or computer, and then everything you did is recorded from most recent to least recent. So typically, so this is going back to what I talked about, paying attention on court, and then are people really going to use anything off the court? But everything is there. So if you look at a match or a practice set, we break it down in stats and video. Well, we can go through this pretty quickly. So everything and again, similar to how the drills are customizable, the presentation and the types of stats you report are also customizable. But for this club and for this coach, this is how they look at things. So you go through the set and you start with a generally high-level summary of what happened from the player's perspective that we're looking at. So this is Daniel. This is my partner's son. So you start, score, you go to the different types of shots that were hit, and then some summary of the serve. Then it breaks it down into each shot and what you're doing in your first serve, what you're doing in your second serve, and we show shot placement charts. And even this is customizable. So
Wow.
for example, 7-shot tennis, which is a new sort of universal language to describe what happens on a court, you could display, instead of this segmentation of a service box, you could use their segmentation of a service box, which then updates how these different zones are reported. And then as you go through, we have a little algorithm that takes your best shot in that session of each type and displays it, which is typically the fastest shot you hit in and we're successful with. And again, going down, continuing to break down into other types of strokes, where you're hitting the ball laterally or vertically and horizontally. And so for a competitive player at any level, there's value here for seeing what it is that you did during a match. So if you're, I think obviously most people understand hitting it within the service box as a ground stroke is bad. So there's some, even for lower level players, there's some advantage of, similar to the cone, saying you thought you were hitting it deep. Well, you're not really hitting it deep. So
Right.
Only 25% of your ground strokes were deep. That's why you're always running around in your opponent. Mm-hmm. And then again, you're hitting it into the middle of the court. So you're not making your opponent work hard. So at every level, there's some suggestions you can make. Again, each time we're pointing out errors as well. So you can look at those.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then going down again in volleys, where you're hitting your volleys. And then I think, for other advanced players, there's things we can report about what you do at different points in the game. So to look at. So, and that can help you talk about tactics and strategy, not just where you should hit a ball.
Okay, let's go up to fitness there. 13.7 miles in a set. What?
Yeah, we had a calculation error.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, need to get a half marathon in? Play one set of singles.
Yeah, that would be great. Or
Oh,
not.
man.
So then the second part of that goes into video. And so for competitive players, it's a tough ask to get them to rewatch a match. But you could say, it was 7-5, so there was a couple of critical games. So we want you to go and review the critical games. So you can, and again, this is customizable, but this is a pretty common standard of how to look at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You can go, so when you broke your opponent, that's how you won the set. We can do some positive reinforcement and look at what happens. So as you can see at the right below the picture, we tell you where you are in the match and what happens on that point.
Uh-huh.
And we give you, and then you can scroll through this game. So you go and you can watch it. We give you multiple camera angles.
Yeah.
And
well, on the first shot, on that first point, the kid in white did a really good job of making his opponent miss.
Did.
Right? By a couple of inches on that corner ball. Obviously, the kid was going for a little too much on that forehand.
Maybe.
Yeah, just make him go for too much on that forehand.
Right.
Yeah, good job.
Or
I'm just having fun. I don't ever turn off my coach knob. It's always on.
Or other ways of looking at different shots. So if you're focusing on someone's fitness, what happened in these really long points.
Okay. Oh, I just saw where you said 1 to 3 shots and then 4 to 5 shots. So you know that a lot of people are going to want to try to make that 0 to 4, 5 to 9, and 9 plus.
Yep.
Right. So is that also customizable?
Yeah, all of this is. So the
Okay.
basic data is tracked and stored. So there's what the player did and what the ball did. And then if you want to see this differently, that's easy.
Yeah, I mean that's great. I mean, some people might even want to really track, first serve and return, and and then the next 2 shots and then the next 2 shots. So that's that's pretty outstanding right there, because that's a nice breakdown, and it's right in line with what a lot of people are wanting to see right now to compare to professional players.
Yeah, and then the last the last thing I wanted to show was when we were talking about we also have this talking about the accountability of how the coach can see the player and whether the player actually practiced the right thing or not. And then if they were practicing it, how well they did. There's another piece of reporting where the coaches and the tennis directors and the owners, they get reports on how the system is used and who's using it and what types of players are on the system. So, so one thing I learned at my last company in the gym world is if you just give them technology and say that's it, it's going to fail, because it doesn't matter how good it is. It's just you need a way of making it easy for the people at the business who are paying for it and whose employees are using it easy. And then you need a way for the business to judge whether the product is doing what it said it was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So we give you reporting so the coach can see a report of how many players they're using it with, what types of players, what their skill level, age range is, and what types of drills they use. And
Right.
over time, you can see what if players are getting better or not.
Well, and to compare to another product that's like the monolith in 2001: A Space Odyssey, where things are not so easily customizable, and the user interface. I mean, I actually went and demoed one of these, on court products, and found the user interface to be very clunky. I mean, I found myself pressing very hard on the screen, and different times of the day the screen gets washed out because the sun is coming from the wrong angle, so you can't really see what you're doing. And then there were certain preset parameters that were not to my liking, because it defined, a low ball as being, I think, less than 2 feet over the net, but a ball that's 2 feet over the net or 1.9 feet over the net, that is not a low ball to me.
Right.
I mean, so it had very interesting parameters, and I wasn't very happy with the fact that they wouldn't be easily customizable.
Yeah. And again, even if it is, and you have to do it as the coach, now to do that for one player, not such a big deal, but to do that for the different levels of players you have, or the different skills of players you have, or ages, where you need to make things a little differently across your whole lesson list, that suddenly becomes a lot of work. So
okay, which leads to another question. So can you change the parameters for each client then? Is it customizable to the client, or each coach has their parameters that they can change and change and modify as they go? So, I mean, could if you were my client, could I set up parameters for you, and then those are your parameters? Or can I, okay, so I can set that up for you and customize that to you.
Yeah, but again, we want to do that for you.
Oh, okay.
Because because we don't want you to spend time. We want people to be interacting with the system while they're on the court, and that across sort of the thousands of clubs I have supported in the health and fitness industry and other technologies, that's one of the biggest points of failure, is the amount of time people spend sort of not using the core functionality. And I would define, creating custom drills is not core functionality. So we want to handle that for you, because there's just too many other things for you to do, to focus on, to give great lessons.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking at this new thing that you just opened up here. So
So
what are we looking at there?
So this is those business reports or accounting reports that let the different people know if everything you're doing is, adds up to success or a win for the club. And again, these things are pretty customizable, and keeping in the vein of trying to make this easy, we set this up during the implementation and create and we can change this over time, but create an automated schedule so the person who needs to get the report gets it when they want it.
Okay.
And they have to log into this if they don't want to and get their own report. So you can create a report and send it to whomever needs to get it. And if this gets collated into some other accounting system, that's fine. And you put in the email address, and you create the report. In addition, which I can show you here, you can look at a report on the spot. So I don't think there's data for today. But this is an example if you're a coach. Typically the type of information they are looking to see. So you start with what their total hours per week are of availability, or per month are of availability, how much they're using the system, and then how much variable revenue the coach generated. So
that's pretty, that's really amazing. And I can see that as a great way to track, are the people improving? Because then you would see a matriculation of greater percentages to 4.0 and 4.5. Vic Braden famously said, if there are no 4.5s at your club, it's your fault.
His method is a big inspiration for many of the features and way we thought about feedback in the system. So just as a quick aside, Jim Klein, who's the director of tennis at Doylestown, where one of our test facilities is, was a student of Vic Braden, and so really spends a lot of time sort of in that mindset with all his players. But so you can see as players migrate through, but you could also, the coach that might want to see, for a specific player that they're hitting, one method of improvement is what's your average rally length in a drill. So you would be able to show that too. So for me, I've been taking lessons with you for 3 months, and it's just frustrating because it seems like I go there, and because you're pushing me each time, I'm experiencing a lot of, I don't know if failure is the right thing, but challenges and doing what you want me to do. So you could say, okay, Adam, I know you are frustrated with me, and every time we come here, I tell you you're doing something wrong, but it actually is a lot better. So here was your average rally length on a ground stroke drill, 3 shots in a row and you'd miss, and now you're at 6 shots in a row.
Right.
Actually gotten twice as good at that, and now 100% improvement in that. And I'm actually, because you're so good at that now, I'm actually asking you to do something that's different. And here's the stat over time that said you improved.
Okay. So that's really awesome. And I'm going to interject one more thing, and then we're going to do a wrap up. So you can give us 1, 2, or 3 takeaways from this talk. But one of my best practices is when I get an adult beginner on the court, after a few lessons, I give them what I call the 2.0 test. And the way it goes is, in a 10-minute period of time, they have to successfully hit a serve and rally 3 consecutive shots. Because if they can do that 10 times in 10 minutes, then they are ready to play a set of tennis with somebody at that same level, and they won't be bored to tears.
Right.
So because what's the most frustrating thing for a new player to play, or for someone who's just becoming an intermediate? They hate playing somebody who just can't get the ball back in the court.
Right.
Or is double faulting always, right? It's just really boring. So anyway, all right. So let's wrap this up. I'm sure there's a lot more depth. People can get in touch with you, and we'll give your contact information to the world, But,
sure.
this has been very detailed, and I'm sure, we've just scratched the surface. I wish we had, 3 or 4 hours to do a full in-service, but we just don't have that kind of time. So what are the top 2 or 3 takeaways that you want people to get from this talk?
I hope we've explained that, Accutennis is a really useful and fun way to train on the court or play on the court. And we've focused on real-time feedback, and that it's that's the big thing. I can't stress that enough. And that for clubs, it's a big value add for the coaches being able to deliver, good lesson plans to their players, and for the clubs to get, for the clubs to have, a new profit center for their operations so they can be more successful as a business.
Yeah, and I will add this, that, being able to gather that data is really important, because then you have something substantial to show the player that they are gaining from these lessons. Or you get your big uh-oh, and then you realize, okay, somebody's not improving like I thought they were, so I better get to work, because I want to see these numbers change so I can have something to show them. So
yeah.
Anyway, sorry. So we got to cut it off there. I almost let slip there. So hey, Adam, how can people reach you?
They can call me 215-317-3848. I always answer. They can email me at adam.accutennis.com, or they can go to accutennis.com, and they can watch some of the videos about the system, how it's used, and there's a form they can fill out there.
Okay, adam@accutennis.com.
Correct.
And then I'll take your phone number and we'll put it in the show notes and all that. And anyway, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck to you. And maybe someday I will be at a club that has Accutennis.
Yeah,
Maybe,
hopefully.
maybe at the end of 2020.
Yeah, you guys out west, all your outdoor courts only.
Exactly. I have no indoor courts. So anyway, all right. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.